school building looked ordinary from the outside. Red bricks, tall windows, and a flag moving slowly in the wind. Every morning, students walked through the front doors with backpacks heavy from books and expectations. Inside those walls, some children felt safe. Others learned very early how quiet pain could become. She was one of the quiet ones. She walked the hallway with small, careful steps, keeping her eyes forward. She never pushed, never shouted, never laughed too loudly. Her teachers often described her as respectful. Her classmates knew her as the girl who always finished her work early and helped others when asked. She did not try to stand out. She only wanted to get through each day without trouble. Her mother had taught her that words mattered, that staying calm mattered, that being kind was not weakness. At home, the girl was curious and bright. She asked questions about the world and listened closely to the answers. But at school, she learned that not everyone listened the same way. One classroom in particular felt different from the others. The teacher who led that class had a loud voice and sharp eyes. The room always felt tense when he walked in. He liked rules more than people, and power more than patience. Some students feared him. Others tried hard to please him. A few learned how to disappear when he spoke. From the first week, the girl noticed how his attention stayed on her longer than it should. When she raised her hand, he sighed. When she spoke, he questioned her tone. When she made even a small mistake, he pointed it out loudly, as if teaching a lesson to the rest of the room. She told herself not to take it personally. Still, the pattern continued. When group work was assigned, he often moved her seat, separating her from others. When grades were returned, he asked her to explain her answers out loud, even when they were correct. When she stayed quiet, he accused her of not participating. When she spoke up, he said she was being disruptive. Other students noticed. They exchanged glances but said nothing. Some felt uncomfortable. Some were afraid of becoming the next target. A few thought this was just how school worked. The girl learned to shrink herself. She sat straighter. She spoke softer. She kept her hands folded on her desk. She followed every rule carefully, hoping that if she did everything right, the attention would fade. But it did not. At home, her mother noticed the change. The girl stopped talking about her day. She took longer to finish homework, staring at pages without turning them. She woke up earlier than needed, moving slowly as if time itself felt heavy. One evening, her mother asked gently if something was wrong. The girl hesitated, then said school was fine. Her mother looked at her for a long moment. She had learned to read small signs. Years of training had taught her how silence could hide fear. But she also knew when to wait. She simply said, "If you ever feel unsafe, you tell me." The girl nodded. Back at school, the tension grew. One day, the teacher accused the girl of cheating on a quiz. He had no proof, only a feeling, he said. He questioned her in front of everyone, asking where she could have learned words like that, why her answers were so precise. His tone was sharp, almost mocking. She calmly explained that she studied. He laughed. The class laughed too, unsure and nervous. After that, the girl felt like every move was being watched. If she looked down, he asked why she was hiding. If she looked up, he accused her of challenging him. The classroom no longer felt like a place of learning. Felt like a test she could never pass. Despite everything, she stayed respectful. She remembered her mother's words. Stay calm. Speak the truth. Never let someone else's anger control your actions. Weeks passed. Then came the lesson that changed the air in the room. The class was discussing honesty and responsibility. The teacher asked students to share examples of people who worked in jobs where trust mattered. Hands went up. Some mentioned doctors. Others mentioned police officers. The conversation stayed light at first. The girl did not raise her hand. But the teacher looked directly at her and called on her anyway. She froze for a second, then stood up slowly. Her voice was soft but steady as she spoke about how honesty mattered in her family. She said her mother always reminded her that truth was important because of the work she did. The teacher leaned back in his chair and asked what kind of work that was. The girl hesitated, then answered honestly. She said her mother worked with the FBI. The room went quiet. A few students looked surprised. Some looked impressed. Others looked confused. No one laughed. The teacher smiled, but it was not a kind smile. He asked her to repeat herself. She did. This time his smile disappeared. He accused her of making things up. He said she was trying to sound important. He told her to stop lying to the class. The girl felt heat rise to her face, but she stayed calm. She said she was not lying. She said she did not usually talk about it, but it was the truth. The teacher's voice grew louder. He said children like her did not have parents in jobs like that. He said she should know her place. He told her to sit down and stop embarrassing herself. The words cut deep. Some students shifted in their seats. A few looked down at their desks. No one spoke. The girl did not sit. Not because she was being defiant, but because something inside her refused to accept the lie being placed on her life. She quietly said again that she was telling the truth. The teacher stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. The girl's heart raced, but she stayed where she was. She had followed every rule. She had spoken respectfully. She did not understand why honesty was making things worse. The teacher stepped closer to her desk. His face was tense. His hands were clenched. At that moment, the bell rang in the hallway outside, signaling the end of another class. But inside the room, no one moved. The girl could feel every eye on her. She wished she could disappear. She wished she had stayed quiet. She wished she had not answered at all. What she did not know was that this moment, small as it seemed, was about to change everything. This was only the beginning. The rest of the day passed slowly, like time itself was tired. After the class ended, students poured into the hallway, talking loudly and shaking off the tension. But she walked out quietly, her shoulders tight, her mind replaying every word that had been said. She could still hear the teacher's voice in her head, sharp and dismissive, as if it had carved something into her memory. She did not tell anyone what happened. At lunch, she sat at the end of the table, pushing food around her tray. Friends tried to pull her into conversation, but she only smiled and nodded. They could tell something was wrong, but they did not know how to ask. School had taught them that some things were better left alone. By the time the final bell rang, she felt exhausted. At home, her mother noticed right away. The girl moved slower than usual. Her backpack dropped to the floor with a dull sound, and she sat on the couch without turning on the television. She stared at her hands, rubbing her fingers together as if trying to steady herself. Her mother sat beside her and waited. After a long moment, the girl spoke. Her voice was quiet, but the words came out in a rush. She explained what had happened in class. The questioning, the laughter, the way the teacher had looked at her when she said the truth. Her mother listened without interrupting. Her face stayed calm, but something behind her eyes changed. She asked a few gentle questions. What exactly was said? Who was there? How close the teacher stood? When the girl finished, she looked down, ashamed, even though she had done nothing wrong. Her mother placed a hand over hers. You did nothing wrong, she said. Those words felt heavy and warm at the same time. Her mother explained that some people reacted badly when their control was challenged. She said honesty could make the wrong people uncomfortable. She promised she would handle it, but she also told her daughter to stay calm and safe at school. The girl nodded, though a small knot of fear remained in her chest. The next morning, she did not want to go. She dressed slowly, checking the clock again and again. The idea of walking back into that classroom made her stomach hurt. But she went anyway because that was what she had always done. At school, the teacher was already in a bad mood. From the moment class began, his tone was harsh. He snapped at students for whispering. He slammed a book onto his desk when someone dropped a pencil. The room felt tense like a storm building. When he saw her walk in, his eyes narrowed. She took her seat and opened her notebook, keeping her head down. She hoped to be invisible. She was not. Throughout the lesson, he found reasons to call on her. He corrected her pronunciation even when it was right. He accused her of not paying attention. Each time she answered calmly, her voice shaking just a little. Other students watched in silence. Some wanted to speak up, but fear kept them quiet. They had seen what happened to anyone who challenged him. Near the end of class, the teacher brought up the same topic again. Authority, truth, respect. Felt intentional. He looked at her and asked if she still stood by what she had said the day before. The room went still. Her heart pounded. She thought of her mother's words. Stay calm. Speak the truth. She said yes. That single word seemed to break something. The teacher's face tightened. He stepped closer to her desk and lowered his voice, but everyone could still hear. He said she was disrespectful. He said she was trying to act important. He told her she needed to learn her place. The words were cruel, but the way he said them was worse. She felt tears press against her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She repeated quietly that she was not lying. That was when the shouting began. His voice echoed off the walls. He accused her of spreading false stories. He said children like her were raised to lie. He said she should be ashamed. Several students gasped. One student raised a hand, trying to say something, but the teacher cut them off. The girl's hands trembled on her desk. She felt small, exposed, alone. The bell rang, but the teacher did not stop. He told the rest of the class to leave. Chairs scraped against the floor as students hesitated, confused. Some looked back at her with worry. Others rushed out, afraid of staying. Within seconds, the room was almost empty. Almost. A few students lingered near the door, unsure whether to go or stay. The teacher glared at them until they left. The door closed. The sound felt final. The girl stood frozen, her backpack still under her desk. She did not know what to do. She wanted to leave, but fear rooted her in place. The teacher paced the room, muttering about lies and disrespect. He stopped in front of her desk and leaned down, his face too close to hers. She could smell his breath. She could feel his anger. He told her she would stop lying or face consequences. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I'm telling the truth. That was when his control snapped. He grabbed her arm hard enough to make her gasp. Time seemed to slow. Her mind raced, searching for a way out, for a voice, for anything. She thought of her mother. She thought of home. She thought of how unfair it felt to be punished for honesty. She did not scream. Shock stole her voice. Outside the classroom, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Voices passed by, unaware of what was happening inside. The teacher tightened his grip, his face red with anger. He told her she had pushed him too far. Her eyes filled with tears. In that moment, the classroom no longer felt like a place of learning. Felt dangerous. What she did not know was that someone else was already on their way into that hallway. Someone who would see everything. Someone who would change how this story ended. But for now, the room was silent, and fear hung heavy in the air. The world seemed to narrow down to the sound of her own breathing. The classroom felt too quiet, like all the air had been pulled out. Her heart pounded so hard she wondered if the teacher could hear it. His hand was still gripping her arm, not crushing it, but tight enough to tell her she was not in control anymore. She tried to pull back. He did not let go. Her chair scraped against the floor as she shifted her weight, and the noise echoed louder than it should have. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stay standing. Sitting felt impossible. Leaving felt impossible too. The teacher leaned closer, his voice low and angry. He told her she was wasting his time. He told her she needed to stop acting like she was special. He said she should be grateful he was even trying to teach her anything. She shook her head slightly. I didn't lie, she said. Her voice was barely there, but the words were clear. That seemed to anger him even more. He let go of her arm and stepped back, pacing again like a storm with nowhere to go. He talked to himself, muttering about disrespect and authority. Every step he took made her flinch. She thought about running. Her bag was still under the desk. The door was only a few steps away, but fear kept her frozen. She did not know what would happen if she tried. Outside the classroom, the hallway sounded normal. Lockers slammed. Laughter floated past. Life went on, unaware of the moment unfolding behind closed doors. Inside, time dragged. The teacher suddenly stopped pacing and turned back toward her. His eyes were cold. He told her she was going to learn a lesson about consequences. He stepped close again, invading her space. Her chest tightened. She raised her hands slightly, not to fight, but to protect herself. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. That was when things crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The teacher reached out again, this time grabbing her near the shoulders. His grip was firm and frightening. She felt pressure and panic at the same time, her breath coming faster as fear took over. She tried to speak, but her words came out broken. Her mind raced. This was wrong. This was not okay. Her vision blurred as tears spilled over. She felt smaller than she ever had before. A child alone in a room with someone who was supposed to protect her. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the classroom. The sound was sharp and unexpected. The teacher froze. So did she. Another knock followed, firmer this time. "Hello?" A voice called from the hallway. The teacher released his grip immediately and stepped back as if he had been burned. His face changed in an instant. Anger vanished, replaced by something else. Fear. The door opened before he could respond. A woman stood in the doorway. She was calm, composed, and sharply dressed. Her eyes moved quickly, taking in the room. The empty desks. The girl standing stiffly, her face wet with tears. The teacher pale and breathing hard. For a moment no one spoke. The woman's gaze settled on her daughter. Everything changed. The girl felt a rush of relief so strong it made her knees weak. Her body finally allowed her to react. Her hands began to shake. Her breath came out in small, uneven bursts. "Are you okay?" the woman asked. Her voice was steady, but there was something powerful beneath it. The teacher tried to speak, stumbling over his words. He said there had been a misunderstanding. He said the student had been disrespectful. He said he was just trying to discipline her. The woman did not look at him. She walked straight to her daughter. She knelt down slightly, bringing her face level with the girl's. She asked again if she was hurt. The girl shook her head, then nodded, unsure how to answer. The woman helped her sit down gently. She placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. Only then did she stand and turn toward the teacher. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. She asked him to step back. He did. She reached into her jacket and showed her badge. The room seemed to tilt. The teacher's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She identified herself clearly and professionally. She said she was there to pick up her daughter early. She asked why her child had been left alone in a classroom. The teacher's face drained of color. He tried to explain again, but his words fell apart. He spoke too fast. He contradicted himself. Sweat formed on his forehead. The woman listened without interrupting. When he finished, she spoke quietly. She told him that physical contact with a student was unacceptable. She told him that isolating a child was against policy. She told him that what she had walked in on was serious. Her tone never rose. That made it worse. She stepped into the hallway and made a call. Within minutes, the school administration arrived. Another adult came with them. The hallway filled with hushed voices and wide eyes. The teacher stood stiffly, saying nothing now. The girl stayed seated, her mother beside her, one arm wrapped around her shoulders. She felt safe for the first time that day. An administrator asked what happened. The girl did not speak. Her mother did. She explained everything clearly and calmly. The questioning, the shouting, the isolation, the physical contact. She did not exaggerate. She did not soften the truth either. The administrator's face grew serious. The teacher was asked to leave the room. As he walked past, he did not look at the girl. The classroom felt different after that. Lighter, like a heavy shadow had lifted. The girl leaned into her mother's side. She felt tired, drained, but she also felt something new. She felt believed. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know how long it would take for things to be made right. But she knew one thing for sure. She was not alone anymore. And the truth she spoke would not be ignored. The hallway felt crowded even though only a few people stood there. Whispers moved from mouth to mouth as students passed by, slowing their steps to look. News traveled fast in schools, even without words. Something serious had happened. Everyone could feel it. The girl stayed close to her mother. Her legs still felt shaky as they walked out of the classroom. The bright lights in the hallway made her eyes sting. Every sound felt louder than normal. Lockers closing, shoes squeaking, voices overlapping. Her mother kept one hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. They were led into a small office near the front of the building. The door closed behind them, cutting off the noise. The room smelled like paper and old books. A desk sat against the wall, covered with folders and a computer that hummed softly. An administrator asked the girl if she needed water. She nodded. As she drank, her hands trembled so much that some spilled onto the desk. Her mother gently took the cup and set it down. The administrator spoke carefully, choosing each word. They said they needed to understand exactly what happened. They said the girl was not in trouble. They said she was safe. The girl listened, but it was hard to focus. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the classroom. The closed door, the raised voice, the fear. Her mother noticed. She told the administrator that her daughter needed a moment. She asked if they could step outside. In the quiet hallway, her mother knelt in front of her again. She reminded her to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow and steady. The girl followed her lead. Her chest loosened just a little. "You did the right thing," her mother said. "I'm proud of you." The words felt like a warm blanket. When they returned to the office, the girl was ready to speak. She described what had happened, slowly and carefully. She talked about the questions, the insults, the way the class had been sent out, the grip on her arm. She did not add extra details. She did not exaggerate. She just told the truth. The administrator wrote everything down. Their face grew more serious with every sentence. After the girl finished, the administrator thanked her. They said what she described was not acceptable and would be taken seriously. The girl glanced at her mother, unsure what that really meant. Her mother asked what the next steps would be. The administrator explained that the teacher had been removed from the classroom for the day. They said there would be an investigation. Statements would be taken. Policies reviewed. The words sounded formal and distant. What mattered more to the girl was the way her mother stayed calm but alert, listening closely, asking clear questions. Before they left the office, her mother made another call. She stepped into the hallway and spoke quietly. She gave details, dates, times, names. When she ended the call, her face was set. They left the school together. Outside, the air felt different, fresher, lighter. The sun was still high in the sky, as if the day had not noticed what had happened inside those walls. In the car, the girl finally cried. The tears came fast and hard, shaking her whole body. All the fear she had held in finally spilled out. Her mother pulled over, unbuckled, and held her tightly. "It's over," she said softly. "You're safe now." The girl nodded against her shoulder, but part of her knew it was not fully over. That night she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the classroom again. She heard the teacher's voice. She felt the fear return. Her mother stayed awake too. She checked on her daughter often, smoothing her hair, whispering reassurance. She knew healing would take time. The next day, the phone rang early. School officials wanted to meet. They explained that multiple students had come forward. They shared stories of unfair treatment, harsh words, and fear. Not everyone had experienced what the girl had, but many had felt something was wrong. The investigation moved quickly. The teacher was placed on leave. Parents were notified. The classroom was reassigned to another instructor. At school, the atmosphere shifted. Students whispered less and watched more closely. Some looked at the girl with sympathy, others with quiet respect. A few even thanked her for speaking up. She did not know how to respond. She was still trying to feel normal again. One afternoon, a student approached her in the hallway and said they were sorry they had not spoken up sooner. The girl smiled weakly and said it was okay. But inside, she felt something change. She realized that staying silent had protected the wrong person. At home, her mother explained what would happen next. There would be meetings, reports, possibly legal steps. She said it would not be easy, but it was important. The girl listened quietly. She asked if she had done something wrong by telling the truth. Her mother shook her head. No, she said. You did something brave. The word stayed with her. Brave. In the days that followed, counselors checked in on her. Teachers spoke more gently. The school felt different now, like it was watching itself. She still felt nervous walking into classrooms. But she also felt stronger. She knew now that her voice mattered. She knew that adults could be held accountable. And she knew that what happened to her had opened a door that could not be closed again. Something had shifted. The story was no longer just about what was done to her. It was about what came next. The weeks that followed felt slower, but also clearer. The girl returned to school with mixed emotions. Part of her wanted to stay home, wrapped in the safety of familiar walls. Another part of her wanted to move forward, to prove to herself that fear would not control her life. Her mother walked her to the front doors the first day back. You don't have to be strong all the time, she said gently. Just be yourself. The girl nodded and took a deep breath before stepping inside. The building felt the same but also different. Posters about kindness and respect had appeared on the walls. Teachers greeted students more carefully. Administrators stood in the halls watching closely. Her new classroom was quieter. The new teacher spoke calmly and treated everyone with the same respect. When the girl answered a question, she was thanked, not challenged. When she made a mistake, it was corrected kindly. It took time for her shoulders to relax. Sometimes, during lessons, her mind drifted back to what had happened. A raised voice in another room would make her flinch. A slammed door would make her heart race. But each day, the fear loosened its grip just a little. Counseling sessions helped. She learned that fear was a normal response to something frightening. She learned that healing did not mean forgetting. It meant understanding that the danger had passed. At home, her mother encouraged normal routines. Homework, dinner together, quiet conversations before bed. They talked about many things, not just the incident. Life continued. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Her mother read it slowly, then handed it to her. The investigation was complete. The teacher would not be returning to the classroom. There would be consequences. Mandatory training for staff. Policy changes. Ongoing reviews. The words felt heavy, but also relieving. The girl did not feel happy. She felt calm. That night, she asked her mother why some people chose to hurt others. Her mother thought for a long moment before answering. Some people confuse power with respect, she said. And when they feel that power slipping, they react badly. The girl considered this. She asked if telling the truth was always worth it. Her mother smiled softly. Yes, she said, even when it's hard. At school, students slowly stopped whispering. The story faded from daily conversation, but its impact remained. One day, during a class discussion about fairness, a student spoke up about treating everyone equally. Others agreed. The girl listened quietly, feeling something warm settle in her chest. She had been part of a change. Not because she wanted to be, but because she refused to lie. As months passed, she grew more confident. She raised her hand more often. She joined an after-school club. She laughed louder. Her voice no longer shook when she spoke. One evening, she and her mother sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn orange and purple. The girl leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "Thank you for believing me," she said. Her mother kissed the top of her head. "There was never a doubt," she replied. The girl thought about the classroom, the fear, the moment everything changed. She realized something important. She was not defined by what happened to her. She was defined by how she moved forward. At school, a younger student once asked her how she stayed so calm. She smiled and said, "I tell the truth, and I ask for help when I need it." The words surprised even her. They were simple but powerful. Years later, she would remember this time not just as something painful, but as something meaningful. A moment when she learned that her voice mattered. A moment when silence was broken. A moment when the right person showed up at the right time. The girl walked into her future with quiet confidence. She carried lessons she would never forget. Kindness is strength. Truth is power. And no one, no matter how small, should ever feel invisible. The story did not end with fear. It ended with hope.